Hey, what's up, military millionaires? I'm your host, David Pere, and I am here with my wonderful co-host, Alex Felice, as always. And today we have an exciting episode. So a recent guest of ours, Lacey, reached out to me and basically just had nothing but amazing things to say about this gentleman as a podcast guest. And so we decided to jump on a call. We decided to have him on the show. Nelson has an incredible story, which we are going to dig into as we proceed. But this is Nelson Tressler, who is the author of the Unlucky Sperm Club, which I love the title of his book, and also the founder, CEO of I Got Smarter, and has turned a rough upbringing into a ton of success through not being a victim. And we're going to dig into some of that today. So I'm excited. So Nelson, welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome to the Military Millionaire Podcast, where we teach service members, veterans, and their families how to build wealth through personal finance, entrepreneurship, and real estate investing. I'm your host, David Pere, and together with my co-host, Alex Felice, we're here to be your no BS guides along the most important mission you'll ever embark on, your finances.
Vehicle 1, you're clear to depart friendly lines.
Roger, Vic 1, Oscar Mike.
Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you, we mentioned before where we should start with this, and you said we should start with a little bit of your story, and I agree. Let's throw some of that out there and tell the audience a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, I've got quite the origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. While she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town, drove into the town square. There he spotted two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on them, killing one and critically wounding another. He was eventually captured and brought to stand trial, where he was facing the death penalty. And my mom testified at his trial that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that the police officer had raped her, and she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And that testimony of my mom's work, the first trial ended in a hung jury. They took the death penalty off the table on the second trial, and my grandfather was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, where he eventually spent the rest of his life, more than 40 years, behind bars, leaving behind me. My mom is one of 15 children. My mom and the rest of the family in this small town to kind of deal with the circumstances of what he did. My life from there, I'm the child of a 15-year-old. Eventually at the age of 21, my mom meets a man who would become my stepfather. Come to find out, he's an alcoholic and very physically and emotionally abusive to me and my mom on a daily basis. And so dealing with that lifestyle, eventually my mom has 4 more children, and because of the circumstances of our house and what's happening in there, a lot of their basic needs fall upon me as the oldest child to kind of take care of the kids and feed and wake up and help with 2 a.m. feedings. But a rough childhood. Eventually, I'm in the 4th grade, and you know how you when you were in elementary school, you'd get excited and look at your report card to see who your homeroom teacher was the next year. I can remember looking down and looking at my report card and seeing straight Fs, and the fact that I wasn't going to 5th grade, I was being held back into 4th grade. The next year, at this time, I can't read, I can't write, I can't spell. They place me into special ed to get the help that I need. Come to find out I have dyslexia, and, that year of school, I missed 60 days or so of school. I don't know the exact number, but a lot of school. So I didn't like school because I couldn't read or write. And my mom would rather me stay home and help with the kids than go to school anyhow. A few years after that, my stepfather was walking home drunk from a bar, and there was somebody else driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him. So it's at this time that my mom, who's lived a very hard life up to this point, but, losing my stepfather kind of left her without hope. She has 5 kids on her own. She's dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She's never worked outside of the home. And now she's really left with no hope. And it's at this time that she decides that she's going to take her own life. And she tries to commit suicide. And fortunately, she was not successful. But after she got out of the hospital, after attempting suicide, it was then that she decided that she wasn't going to be able to care for all 5 kids on her own. So that's when our family got split up, and I went to go live with my grandmother, who's the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And, like I said, my gram had 15 children. Some of those kids were still living at home in this small 3-bedroom house. And my gram, the way she was, she was also raising, 4 or 5 or 6 other grandchildren at the same time. But for the first time in my life, I had a stable childhood. There was always food in the refrigerator. The lights always turned on when you hit the switch. And I didn't have to worry about my stepfather coming home and beating me or my mom, or even having to wake up at 2 a.m. to take care of babies. And the one rule that my gram had was you were going to go to school. She didn't really care how well you did at school. Education wasn't a huge priority in our family, but that was probably her only, break from kids was you're going to school. I'm at least going to get a few hours of me time. And it was at this time, in 7th grade or so, a counselor from a university came and started talking about all the things that you needed to do in order to get into college. And kind of a bell went off in my head. I thought, what if I could graduate from college? And, I would, turn my life around and send it in a different direction than where I was heading. And, whenever you set that a goal or tell yourself you want to do something that is going to be hard and difficult, that voice in the back of your brain starts screaming at you all the reasons that you shouldn't even attempt it. And I remember thinking, Nelson, you're in special ed. You can't read, you can't write, you can't spell. My mom's family, of those 15 children, only 2 of them had ever graduated from high school. None had ever gone to college. And, I'm like, I'll be lucky to graduate high school, let alone go to college. But I started working at school and doing my best to do the things I thought I needed to do to get into college. And, eventually, it took 12 years after I set the goal. It took 4 different colleges. It took 4 years in the Air Force on the GI Bill, but eventually I became that first person in my family to graduate from college and get that college degree. And that, just blew my mind that, somebody like me who came from where I came from, set a goal to graduate college, and I actually was able to do it. And that was the time that I really became obsessed with goals and personal development. And, over the last 20 years, I've done everything I could to go to all the seminars and read all the books and get the magazines and really use goals and personal development to design a life that I couldn't have even imagined, 20 years ago. And, it's led me here to be talking with you guys about, my life and my successes. So that's kind of the short part of the story. I know it didn't seem short.
That's the most credit anybody on this show has ever given to college.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was that first big goal, and it opened my eyes to what else I could do with goals, and it also opened my eyes for me to realize that I could do hard things, because college was super hard for me. And it just kind of put me on that path to realize that if I put my mind to something, I could get it done.
How old were you when you graduated college?
27, 28.
Yeah. That's actually a very common. Are you familiar with the Phoenix metaphor?
Kind of the bird that goes to ashes and then comes back up.
Reborn in your own flames. Yeah. It happens to people around 30, 28, 30. My background isn't similar, but I think that's a very common time for people to have that epiphany, like, oh, hey, I'm in charge of this life thing. I can do something with.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, that's one of the philosophies that I got smarter is we take 100% responsibility for our own success. And, I totally agree with that.
And what a insane, it was like one turn after the next turn after the next turn. There wasn't really any break in there. It's just a very unique story for sure. And the fact that I think the thing that stuck out to me, maybe not the most, but how casually you said, multiple, there were 15 children in a 3-bedroom house and several of them were still living in the house. And that was like luxury, like the first stability you had. I think that kind of hit home for me. Like, I hear people, my kids gripe about having to share a bedroom. I just think.
Yeah. I mean, my where I slept every night until maybe 17, when a bedroom opened up, is my Gram's bedroom. I rolled out a sleeping bag next to her bed, and on a mattress next to me was a girl cousin that lived with my Gram. And, I had cousins plopped on couches and love seats and, it's totally different. I mean, it was relaxing and, my Gram was a saint, so, just living without fear and, always having food and all those was just one less thing to worry about. And what you find is, when you're struggling, trying to meet your basic human needs, you can't focus on anything else. And for the first time, those needs were being met and I didn't have fear. And then that's when I could start really focusing on where my life was going and what I wanted to do with it.
There's poor people in the whole planet, man. We're so entitled in this country that problem you express. People that, a lot of people in America have stability. A lot of people are lucky. And they can focus on things like you say, but it's not the case everywhere. So it's good though, because it makes you not so entitled.
Yeah. And one of the things, that I talk about in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, is, I joined the Air Force and I know a lot of your listeners are military, but, what really opened up my eyes and believe me, I felt sorry for myself growing up. And believe me, there were times that I said, why me? And, some of the situations that I had to deal with. And especially I felt like, well, none of this is my fault. I didn't do any of that stuff. And here I am having to deal with it. But when I was able to go over to, Saudi Arabia, and I saw the way that women were treated over there and they had veils on their faces. And I remember walking into a convenience store and there were 4 or 5 women in there with robes over their faces. And as soon as they saw me, they sprinted away from me like I had the plague. And, come to find out that they couldn't be anywhere where there was another man or, heaven forbid, a service member. And I was able to go to Turkey and, I saw orphans on the street there that were begging for food to survive. I mean, they didn't have a home to go to. They didn't have parents to go to. They were on the street begging for food. And if they didn't get food, they would starve to death. And believe me, when I saw those type of things in different countries, that self-pity that I kind of had growing up melted away. And I realized, there's always no matter what situation you're in, there's always somebody out there praying to be in your exact situation.
I remember going without running water for a couple of months, and it's good. I share a lot of that sentiment. Like, I'm not big on excuses. I'm not big on pity either. And I'm definitely not big on victimhood. So yeah, I mean, that whole ideology is right in line. I think that's probably why David said, I'd like you.
Yeah. And that's one of our philosophies that I got smarter is, no excuses, justifications, or whining. I mean, it does no good. I mean, you have to get after it. You can't control, the storms of the world, but you can absolutely control the way that you set your sail. And, one of my favorite philosophies is you get to give meaning to everything that happens to you in your life. And if you get to give meaning to everything that happens to you, why on earth would you give it a negative meaning? And I know there's some hard things out there that people go through, but if you dig deep enough and get creative enough, I guarantee you'll find something good in every situation that you've lived through.
I was kind of joking before we started recording about how sick I was of hearing people blame the year 2020 for all of their problems, and just kind of joking, like we're talking about the victim mentality, and it's like, well, okay, but why didn't you do it in 2019 then if 2020 was so bad? Like what makes you say you're going to do it in 2021? Like, I know a lot of people. I mean, for me, 2020 was one of the better years I've had in a long time, not because of the year. That has nothing to do with it, just because I progress over the last, whatever.
If you're buying real estate or investing in the stock market, 2020 has been the best year you've ever had in your whole life. I don't know who's complaining to you.
Well, you know what I mean.
So,
Nelson, what did you do after college?
So I went into commercial real estate, and did that for 20 years and was successful in that. I worked for a top 5 firm and was fortunate enough to be the #1 producer worldwide several times in the retail division. And that kind of led me into a lot of other opportunities, and got into some other businesses, got into the children's daycare centers, which, there's a great story in there about hiring a man to run one of those that turned out to be a child molester unknowingly, and dealing with that. And then was fortunate enough to open up and build one of the largest privately held pet resorts in the country, and was able to exit that business a couple years ago. And then now that's led me to where I am now, starting I Got Smarter and building that business now to help people achieve their goals.
What is the largest pet resort in the United States?
What? Camp Bow Wow is a franchise. I think they're the biggest, and there's some other big ones out there that are owned by corporations. But we were privately held, and so yeah, definitely wasn't the biggest. One of the largest privately held ones before we sold to one of the big corporations.
Well, where was it located?
Well, we had Vegas and Phoenix, Peoria, Tempe. Just those areas there.
My dog and I do this podcast together, so he was interested. He was curious.
Oh yeah. So that was a journey there, building those, because I had children's daycares and I had doggy daycares at the same time. And believe it or not, the pet parents were much more neurotic than the children's parents. So we had a lot of people who were going on trips crying in the lobby when they had to leave their dogs, and so dealing with that. And dogs can't talk, so anytime anything went wrong, a lot of times people jump to the deep end of the pool on what happened. So definitely a hard business, and lots of interesting stories there.
Out of curiosity, all right, so you were a commercial broker, and clearly a fairly big and successful commercial broker. Was that in Vegas, or where was that? Okay.
Yep,
so very,
possible.
Very successful commercial broker in Vegas. I'm curious why you went childcare and doggy care. That seems like a very interesting side of real estate / business to move into after 20 plus years of commercial real estate.
Yeah. And it was during my commercial real estate firm. So, the children's daycares, I would find spaces for tenants who were looking for, places to put their business. And so I was exposed to a lot of people out there. And the guy that we ended up getting into bed with, was looking for an investor, and me and my father-in-law invested with him, and we built his, the chain out to 6 locations. And then come to find out that, he was embezzling money, from us through the company, and paying all his personal bills and paying his daughters hundreds of thousands of dollars. And eventually, we had to, sue him and actually had to buy him out to try to save the businesses. My father-in-law was a dentist and had put all of his retirement into this and was going through kidney failure. And it was during, 08, 09, the worst part of the economy.
Oh, yeah. Perfect timing.
Yeah. So that's how we got into that. And then the pet resorts, I had a building that I was trying to lease out that I owned. And it was kind of at the forefront of before these pet resorts and doggy daycares got popular. And somebody talked to me about opening up a doggy daycare, and I thought they were crazy. And I really took the meeting out of entertainment purposes more than anything, because I'm like, I am not leasing my space to somebody who wants to have a doggy daycare. And ever the deal maker, they did a great job selling it. And I started to research it and realized, hey, this might actually catch on and be a good business. And then she ended up finding another location down the street. And I had, talked myself into it so much so that I'm like, screw it. If she's not going to do it, I'm going to open my own up. And, for the next few months, I did all the research and hired a contractor and, built that first one out. And, I talk about this in the Unlucky Sperm Club, but it failed at first. And then my brother-in-law, who was working with me in real estate, he wanted to be a vet, and eventually he took it over and, turned it into, what it eventually became. And we grew it into different states and then ended up exiting it. And that's why I'm able to sit here and talk about goals and personal development with you.
So moral of the story, lease Nelson's building, or he's going to create your business and run you out of business.
Yeah, she did go out of business. So, but yeah, that wasn't my plan. I just loved the business, and it was an old children's daycare building, and the toys were out there and the shade structures, and I could just envision the dogs having so much fun doing that, and I couldn't talk myself out of it as much as I tried to, because believe me, it wasn't something that I had, set my life goal to do, but it definitely worked out for us.
If I go and drop my dog off, like I went for Tulum, I went for 8 days and I dropped my dog off at the pound or the daycare. Me and him both had an epic meltdown in the lobby. I wasn't wearing one of my pink t-shirts the other day. You would never have expected this from me. But yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm sitting here like, that's a good business, because then I can have my dog go to my own place. That's a good solution.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was good. And that was part of my thinking. I mean, I'm a dog guy. We have 3 dogs now. And, we used to take our dogs to the vet's office, to the kennel, and, they'd be locked in that cage for however long you were away. And they'd be pissed at you for the next week for locking them up. And, and then this was cage free, they got to play. And, we even offered suites with TVs, and, we offered a nighttime belly rub tuck-in, service and all of that. So, I mean, it was definitely not the kennel. It was the
Ritz.
It was
the doggy Ritz.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dog goes to a VIP pet resort. It's exorbitantly expensive and worth every penny, but he's still mad when I get home. You're right.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So we got super wrapped up in doggy daycare and child daycare.
So which did you like better? Did you like,
good question.
Real estate or running? Like, what was the difference? Were you doing real estate? You're working as a broker, but you were buying real estate as well?
Yeah, I bought for my own portfolio and got involved in deals and all that.
Were you doing like retail commercial, or like we do a lot of multifamily?
Yeah, no, I was a retail broker, and so I did all the retail shopping centers and the land that you built shopping centers on and buildings, single tenant stuff.
So actually, this is a good point for our listeners. Like, part of the reason why I can do the commercial real estate now is because I spent a lot of time doing commercial underwriting. And so Nelson's story is similar. For people who want to open a business, it's like, you got to get close to these things and see how they work. When you're doing commercial retail sales, I mean, you see businesses come in, you see probably a lot of their business plans, you know how the lending is going to line up, you know how the transaction can go from start to finish. And then when they sell, they usually call you, the same broker, to do the sale generally. So that's a really good point for listeners. Like if you want to learn how to do this stuff, you can start on the employment side to kind of get in. That's what I did with banking. And so I really like that because I was wondering how you went from commercial real estate to this business, but they weren't as separated as it might sound because you were doing retail businesses and then you're like, I'll just go start a retail business.
Yeah. And I mean, I worked my way through college washing windows, and a lot of my clients were retail clients, beauty salons and all that. So I kind of had that in, but yeah, I mean, if you want to do something, you got to rub shoulders with the people that are already in the industry. And that, I attribute a lot of the things that I got into is because I was exposed to them. I was dealing with business owners who were starting businesses and I saw everything that kind of went into it. And, I definitely knew real estate. I knew what made a great site and, what sites were losers. And I knew what sites, businesses would do good at certain sites. So, I was doing all that and getting paid and kind of getting that education. And then eventually I could go in and do it myself. And, I started small too. You try to sell a person or a group a shopping center, and almost without exception, one of the questions would be, well, would you put your own money into this? And, that was one of my things is I wouldn't try to sell something that I wouldn't buy myself if I could. And so I could always say yes. And a lot of those investors would say, well, great. How much money do you have to put in this? And, in the beginning, maybe I had 1,000, maybe I had $10,000 to put into it. And they would have me put that money in to prove that I would stand behind it. And so I started to be able to get into deals like that, really small at first, and then, more later. And then eventually I was out there looking for my own deals and buying them myself.
What's up, military millionaires? I wanted to briefly talk about a service I offer that a whole lot of people don't seem to know about, and I guess that's a failure on my part for not having discussed it enough. So look, finding a realtor that understands investing and or the VA loan or both is not always the easiest thing in the world. And finding a lender, same thing. So what I have started doing is I've built I have a large network, but I've started to compile it all together finally as a legitimate Excel document driven, location driven list for you guys essentially. So what it is basically just my way of helping connect you with a realtor or a lender that I know personally and have vetted and talked to and understand that they're not going to screw you. And what I do is, like, for example, I had a market where I had 2 or 3 agents that I all sent the same person as a connection and said, hey man, I trust, I know all of these. Let me know what you think. And they all said the same agent and same thing. So what I've done is if there's multiple agents in the same market, I choose the best one, and that's who I'm going to hook you up with. But the whole point of this is just to help ensure that you get connected to the best agent. So if that is something that you would like, just go to the website, go to FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/VA-Realtor/ or just reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook, whatever. I'll send you the link, or you can find it on the resources page of the website. But look, all it is a way to help connect you with an agent who's going to hook you up. No, I don't charge a fee for you. No, I don't charge a fee for the agent. It's just a way to hook you guys up. At the end of the day, as a buyer, you're not going to pay for a realtor anyway. So, ta-da, it's magic. You might as well use one. As far as VA lender, I've got a really good one that I work with and know very well. There's several others that are pretty good, and I'll probably try to steer you away from some companies that I just don't think are very reputable or have been very helpful. So, if this is a service that sounds good to you for free 99, then reach out. And if not, then enjoy the show right now.
I love this story because I wouldn't have normally told you this, but I generally hate brokers in general.
Everybody hates brokers, man. They're a necessary evil. No one wants a broker until they need a broker. And then when a broker brings them a deal, they still hate them and think that they didn't need them. So believe me, I know it.
100%.
But if I got a broker to fund my deal.
My complaint, it's more like this. I don't like that brokers don't have skin in the game. So I love that you're like, yeah, I'll sell you that deal and I'll put something. I'll put some skin in the game. I love that, Nelson. Well,
and I got to the point where I was asking like, hey, is there any room in this deal? And a lot of times people were doing these ticks, tenant in common, where they were going out and getting a bunch of investors. So, I hooked up with a few of those guys and we're bringing them good deals. And I was throwing my money in with them. And, the more money that I had to throw in there, if I loved the deal, I was putting as much in as they would let me put in. And I even had owners say, oh yeah, we don't have that much. So, so that worked out well for me, and it got my foot in the door, and I was able to, benefit on a smaller scale, but at least I was able to benefit because they allowed me to throw a few bucks in the pot.
Yeah, but now you're making a return. You're building relationships. You're learning the business, and you're putting a good name for yourself. Because again, it's like, okay, he'll sell me this, but he'll put some skin in the game. So I love that. That's a good strategy.
So I got asked by a buddy 6 months ago we're going to write an offer on a 9-unit here in San Diego. And one of the major selling points for me deciding to work with him on the deal, and I was going to run to help him out with the operations side of things, was that his broker was going to front like 50K, I think, into the deal. And that was an immediate, I was like, oh, if your broker is so sold on this deal at our asking or our offer price that he's already said he's going to throw money in, like, to me, that's huge on so many levels. That just makes me trust the deal for one, but obviously if the broker is involved, like if his interests are aligned with you and he's investing with you, he's not going to, you don't have to worry about anything going not in your favor during the process. So it's pretty cool. I like that for sure.
Well, and brokers have that, that local expert knowledge in real estate. So, chances are, depending how savvy of an investor you are, but, chances are that broker knows the market a lot better than you and knows what type of deals are getting out there. And if that broker's willing to jump in that deal, you can pretty much be assured that, it's a decent deal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So talk to us about I Got Smarter. That was the next step in this process, I believe. What is that, and how did that come to fruition?
Yeah. So, like I said, I was able to exit a few businesses, and you get to that point where you want to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. And it's definitely not in me to prop my feet up and sit back and watch sunsets. I always have to be doing something. And, for the first time, I told you my origin story, but what I had moved to Las Vegas from my hometown, when I joined the Air Force, and I never wanted to talk about those circumstances again. It weakened me, and, all the heartache and crap that I had to deal with, going through that. The only person who knew that story, besides the people in my hometown, was my wife. And I told her before I married her, just because I figured she deserved to know. I never told my kids. I never told, any of my friends. But I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what do I want to do? And I love goals. I love personal development. I used it in all of my life. I helped a lot of people with their goals. And I started to think, why did I live this life? Why was I born into these circumstances? And for the first time, I started to think, maybe this happened to me so that I could help other people. And for the first time, that story started to bring me energy instead of making me weak and taking energy from me. And I started to kind of tell that story and use that story and to help other people finally achieve their goals and use what I've been obsessed with for the last 20 years to really build a life that I never could have even imagined. And so I sat down and I started to work on the program and worked on it for a year straight, just figuring out everything that I thought would help people achieve goals or help them not, fall off the wagon of achieving goals, because I definitely realize, we don't have a knowledge problem when it comes to achieving our goals. We have an execution problem. We just don't do what we know we're supposed to do. And, so I built this program, and then of course I had to take it to the next level and build an app so that it was easy to use and people could have it on their phone, and people could invite a success partner to help them stay accountable to, what they said they were going to do, and they could help them. And just kind of put it all together and got it out there, and just saw the success that people had with it. And, here I am, keep trying to get it out there and trying to have people, understand how it can change their lives and how they can be living a drastically different life in just a few months, if they learn how to set goals and achieve them.
What's the military discount, Nelson?
Your military discount, you know what? The app's only $9.99. I mean, whenever I was designing this thing, I didn't want price to be a problem. I mean, I know there's coaches out there and there's definitely a place for coaches, but I had executive coaches. They're expensive. And even though I think that the value's there, I think there's a lot of people out there that can't afford, a couple $100 or $1,000 a month. And this app, I wanted to make it to where if you wanted to change your life, if you truly wanted to, reach your goals, that it was going to cost you less than, 2 Happy Meals at McDonald's a month. And so I priced it at $9.99 and feel like anybody who wants to, change their lives can do it. You can find that much money in your couch cushions.
I like that.
Ask David. David, if listeners, you can just email David. He'll give you $10 if you can't.
It's $10 a month now. $10 a month.
Well, David said he'll spot you the first month.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex. That was the goal of this podcast, was instead of having a sponsor, I could pay people to listen to the show. That's my business model.
You had such a good year. It's Christmas.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll give away the first month free.
Boom! You see those negotiating skills I have, David? Oh, you owe me.
Nelson, no, I almost want to tell you we shouldn't do that, just because I'm never going to hear the end of Alex talking about how great a negotiator is. Oh my goodness. Oh man, that would be awesome. I think our listeners would absolutely love that, Nelson. And that's super generous. So we appreciate that. We'll link to all this in the show notes below. So
absolutely.
And we will not, I'll just exit out the entire Alex negotiation piece there. So there's no evidence of that. It'll just be the kindness of your heart.
Well, we'll list it as the Alex discount. So you might want to let that in.
Oh, you're stoking the ego. I got to live with this guy. I got to deal with this guy.
We all have to deal with me. It's not easy for me either. Okay. I got to listen.
I'm going to replace you.
Things that
Attila, get up here.
He's not as talkative, but he is his hand.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, the book, it was a hard book to write. I just started thinking about it with this business and, going through a lot of those memories. It's a self-help, memoir / self-help book. And, it kind of tells the story of my life. It tells, kind of going through the Great Recession as a commercial real estate broker and as a business owner, struggling with marriage and kids. And it's really, it's raw and it's out there. I didn't pull any punches. I didn't try to, make success seem like it's easy, because I think that's one of the problems is I think people see somebody who they perceive has some success in life and they think that it was a smooth ride. And I definitely wanted to be raw and show people that, hey, it's not easy, but it's absolutely worth it. So I got into the nitty gritty, all the way from, hiring a child molester to run my daycares and dealing with that. And me and my wife, separating for a time and, the situations with my family and all that went around with that. And, dating the daughter of the man that my grandfather shot that survived unknowingly, and finding that out from her dad when I was over at her house,
That's my favorite one so far, by the way.
Taking a date to the dance and having their father follow you to the dance so that you don't pull off the road and rape her, and then have her make sure that she comes home early, then they have to pick her up. And there was a lot of situations like that I kind of get into. But at the end of every chapter, I kind of tell the reader what I learned from it. and spin it and give it that positive meaning, because a lot of the times, and some of the times when I was going through it, I couldn't find the positive meaning. But reflection is such a strong thing when you get through it. I mean, one of my favorite, quotes is, "Never be ashamed of a scar. It just lets you know that you were stronger than what tried to kill you or hurt you." And that, that's what this book is. It's about hope. It's about inspiration. It's about understanding that, you know what, you're not a product of your circumstances, whether you were born in them or you find yourself in circumstances that you don't like now, that all you have to do is start making different choices. And, you can start to live a different life, or at least, one choice can send your life in a different direction. And then you keep making those same type choices. And eventually you'll end up living a life that you couldn't have even imagined, as I'm doing today.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm excited to read it. I think you've just got a very, I don't want to say interesting or unique story, because I don't think those do it justice, but you've done a lot and you've accomplished a lot of things. And I think that's, just a testament to what you're saying, right? Like, do you set a goal, you stick to it, you're not be a victim, be resourceful. And it's amazing what you can accomplish over time. Like, those actions just compound.
Yeah. And it does. And it's, it's a matter of just taking that one extra step, every single day. And it's also having that clear vision. I mean, I think there's so many people out there that don't even know what they want to accomplish. And how in the world can you accomplish something that you don't even know what it is? And they're just so reactive every single day. And that's the great thing with the I Got Smarter app, is we have what we call a morning ritual. And within 5 to 7 minutes, 10 minutes max, you design your entire day, and what you need to accomplish for your goals, what your most important thing is. We teach gratitude in there and self-help things, and, how you can help your partner. But within 10 minutes, your entire day is planned. And then the app automatically populates your task list. So after going through that ritual, all you have to do is sit down and look at your task list and like, okay, you know what? I have a health goal, and, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes. And now you look there and you work out for 30 minutes, you check it off. What's next on the list? And what people think that they don't have the time to really do that. Well, that 10 minutes saves you hours and hours of not knowing what you need to do and not having that crystal clear vision of it. And so many of us who don't know what tasks to do, you feel cloudy all day and you're kind of scrambling from one fire to the next. And then what ends up happening is you never work on those things that are the most important to you. And, in the I Got Smarter app, you always know what that is, and you're always working on it, and you get those things checked off. And what you realize is you have a ton of time left over at the end of the day to do all the other things that you feel like you'd be missing out on.
How much of this song came from the Army or the Air Force? Because, for example, I remember when I was a kid, I had all sorts of time to kill. And then I joined the Army, and it's like 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I'm freaking busy, like super busy. And there ain't no TV. And I was like, man, I just been misplanning my days because I didn't have goals. I didn't have any intentionality. I didn't have a schedule. Now, turns out I don't like those things. I like winging it, but that's just my style. But it was very helpful for me to get that, like, oh, hey, you're planning your day and you're doing it a terrible, terrible job. And so of course you're not getting anything done because, you haven't planned it. So the question was, how much of that did you learn from military?
You know what? The military had a huge effect on my life. I mean, it gave me, all those standards and values that I was lacking growing up. It gave me, the rules and, it was everything that I didn't have growing up. And I think that helped me, build some of those values and standards in my life as I, after I got out, that, it's important to be on time, and it's important to do your best, and it's important to be accountable to other people. And, none of that stuff was important growing up, but, after getting out of the Air Force, I mean, I knew how important that was and what a benefit it was that, people could count on you and that you were a person of your word, and, you couldn't just not show up and not do what you said you were going to do. And yeah, I think a lot of that bled over into my life post-military.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, military definitely turned my life around. Not that I was anything terrible so much as just that I was very disorganized. And I had no discipline at all.
Are you sure that how much did it really turn around?
And then I'm going to keep talking so that Alex can't get his jab.
Nelson, how long were you in?
Right,
4 years. I went in. So the way I got into college was I had one college that wanted me to come play football for them. I got in at the end of my first year. I owed $3,500. At this time I'm living with my gram. She made $4,800 a year on Social Security. So there was no way I was going to be able to go back to school. And that's when I joined the Air Force. And my buddy told me about the GI Bill. And so I selfishly, went in like, hey, and not only you go there, it checked a lot of boxes for me because one, it showed me how I was going to be able to pay for school. But two, it was my way out of my town to where I had so much baggage and what represented so much. And for the first time when I got into the Air Force, nobody knew what the last name Tressler meant or what I represented. And I could be Nelson Nobody. And it was so liberating that I really thought to myself, I could be anybody that I want to be now. And, not having that ability, when I was in my small town, I think I really took advantage of that. And I had a lot of haters, people in my small town, and there was definitely some of that. I'm going to show them in what I did. And I think I've gotten away from that now, but early on, that was definitely some motive that I was going to show them that, I was an important person and I could succeed no matter what they thought about me.
I think it's a very common theme, especially for enlisted people. It's like, get out of my small town and away from all my family. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, that's sign right up. We go tomorrow. I had a guy, it was like 2 weeks before I left, and I was going to join with my buddy, Corey. We were going to join together. He ended up actually doing it a year later than me, but we were leaving and we're hanging out at this little store down the street from me. And we're talking to another buddy of ours, and we were talking about joining, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to join too. And he's like, I believe Corey's going to go. I don't think you're going to go. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you, Chris Dufour. What now?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I like that though.
Awesome.
It's very freeing. It's a very freeing feeling. You're like, ooh, I can take control. A couple of decisions, fix all this right up. Not fix it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I talk about that in my book too, is, addition by subtraction is, a lot of times, especially in goals, we're out there always thinking about what more we can do or what more we can have. And a lot of times, in order to get that more, you've got to get rid of some stuff that's either in your life or, so, a lot of times, and especially when you're coming from a scarcity mindset, where I grew up, early on in life, not having enough food, not having heat in the house, not having the lights on, and, not having, tons of stuff. The last thing that you think of is that you need less of anything. I mean, you're focused on getting more and gaining more. And, whenever I joined the Air Force, it was like, I got out of that and I didn't have all of that. And now all of that, baggage freed up for me to gain the good things in life and the things that I wanted in life, because I no longer had to deal with all that baggage. So addition by subtraction, you may have to get rid of something, somebody, or, some place to, take your life to the level and the destination you want to go to.
Somebody or some place. You said it. People, they don't want to hear it, but that is it. You got to get rid of some of them people, and you got to probably pack up, move. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you guys are spot on. I think a lot of people use the military for that. And it's it's a great avenue to get away from a place that maybe you don't necessarily want to be. And
it It ain't the pay.
I don't know many people who have joined the military who at the end of the day, it wasn't a great choice for them. I mean, I think if you go in there with the right mindset and do what you're supposed to do, I find it hard to come out of the military not a better person and not benefiting from that decision.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who didn't stay in because it wasn't for them, but I can't name anybody. I know there are people, but I can't name anybody off the top of my head who's ever regretted joining the military. Like, yeah.
I know a guy who got, I think he got, I don't know if he got an honorable discharge. He got out early and he hated it. And it was like 6 or 7 years later, he's like, you know what? That was really good for me. I should have done it. I should have been less of a smart ass. But what I did get, it actually took some time to feel it. But now it's working for me. I wish I didn't squander my time so badly. But even to your point, even the people that are like, hey, you got booted.
Yeah, this is not for me, but they don't regret doing it.
Yeah. And even him, he was like, oh, I probably should have tightened up a little bit.
Absolutely. All right, Nelson, I got a few questions I ask every guest.
All right.
The first one is, if a E1, E2, 18, 19-year-old was to walk up to you asking you for life advice, what do you think is like the one thing that I guess that you wish you'd known when you were 18?
Dream big. I mean, I think a lot of us, at 18, 19, we don't know what our potential is. And there's some 18, 19 years out there that, they think their potential is incredible. And I love that. I mean, I've got a son like that, the moon is, as far as he's going to go, but no, dream big and don't ever be ashamed of dreaming big. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to shelter their goals and their dreams because it makes other people uncomfortable. Dream big and go after them. And you know what? Time is our most precious resource. You don't feel like that at 18, 19 years old. You feel like you have your whole life ahead of you. And then what you realize is 50 will be here before you know it. And, don't waste a second of it. Don't waste, any time. Use it. It's the great equalizer. Everybody has 24 hours in a day, whether it's the guy on the street with a sign asking for money or the billionaire climbing into his jet. That's the one great equalizer, is time and that 24 hours. And the life that you're going to live is going to be determined on how you use that 24 hours each and every day.
Yeah, I agree. And I like the dream big. People are going to try to talk you down no matter what you do. So go for it. So,
yep.
Right on. What's a resource you recommend? Book, course, website, whatever that you would recommend to, I guess, anybody looking to get into real estate or just business and entrepreneurship in general?
You know what? There's this new book and it's got a great title. It's called The Unlucky Sperm Club. And it helps you realize that you're not a victim of your circumstances, but that you are a product of your choices. Selfless plug. You know what? Definitely The Unlucky Sperm Club. But a book that I loved was Multiple Streams of Income. And I know it's old because I read that when I first got into real estate. And, that kind of gave me that vision of having these multiple streams of income, through different types of investment. So I love that. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a classic, anything from Napoleon Hill. And if you're in sales, anything from, Brian Tracy's great with goals. So I've read so many books and love them. I mean, I think getting into, listening to books or podcasts in your car would be my number one advice to anybody looking to further themselves in anything, is use that time to educate yourself on the things that are important to you.
I agree. Just don't tell Alex what books you read, because he'll just judge you because you haven't read whatever obscene book he created a title for and thinks is better than you because of.
And then as far as a program, there's this awesome program out there. It's called I Got Smarter, and it'll help you achieve any goal that you want to set, whether it's business, financial, lifestyle, health, And the great thing is it's only $9.99 a month. And Alex has got you guys a free month to start. So
I love that. Yeah, we'll put all the links below for that, and we really appreciate it. And then the final question is just where can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, you can go to NelsonTressler.com and everything's there. The I Got Smarter program and the book, The Unlucky Sperm Club. If you're on Facebook, you can join our page, Nelson Tressler, where we're always putting out great free content to kind of inspire and motivate people. And I'm kind of new to social media, so I'm still trying to kind of figure all that stuff out. I didn't have any social media until about a year ago. So.
Yeah, I like it. You just take pictures of your food.
Yeah.
That's the secret. Or your dog. All right. Nelson, thank you so much for joining us today. You've got a very powerful story, but you've accomplished a ton. I don't want to say in spite of, but with that, right? And then because of that, you've got some very valuable guidance and advice for people. And I know that the book is going to reach a lot of people. I'm excited to get my copy in the mail and read it. And I'm super, super stoked for having had you on the show. Lacey was right. You're a great guest. So thank you very, very much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on. And hopefully your listeners got a few nuggets out of this. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.